We have a majority of council members here, so welcome all. We do have some guests as well. Some people choose to watch on the YouTube link. Others have joined us today. So let me get the PowerPoint up and running here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Regular pencil.
All right. So I am flying solo today, so I'll be controlling the PowerPoint and leading the meeting. Did someone say they couldn't hear? Okay, so we're set with that. All right, well, welcome everybody to the July 26th Connecticut Reading Leadership Implementation Council meeting. It's wonderful to have you here. As you know, oops, yeah, it seems like we have a lot of guests today. But as you know, I am the Reading Literacy Director, Dr. Melissa Woldarczyk-Hickey. In addition, I am going to be serving as the interim director of the Reading Center. So I am the first official employee of the center. And we'll talk more about that as the meeting goes on. What I'd like to do is just kind of start out with, it is summer. And if you could just quickly put into the chat something you've done this summer that has brought you joy. So what has brought you joy? And you can throw it right into the chat. I'm going to start by putting college visits with my daughter. Oh, nice. Oh, wow. I see, this is wonderful. I see a lot of people were able to go away, visit family and friends, to teach reading. We've got a couple of Wisconsins here. Kayaking, St. Martin. Oh, this is wonderful. Ireland, Viking cruise. Wow, you all are going everywhere. This is great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Anyone want to talk about their experiences before we dive in? Or share one of the good books they're reading? All right, well then we shall move along. Leslie, would you please take roll call of the council members and then we'll find out who else has joined us today.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you beautifully.
Thank you. Dr. Maureen Burmet?
Here.
Dr. Michael Coyne?
Hi, everyone.
Dr. Margie Gillis?
I'm here.
Kimberly Healy?
Here.
Stephen Hernandez?
I'm here.
Dr. Melissa Jenkins? Christina Kingsbury? Stephanie Lockhart?
I'm here.
Francis Rabinowitz?
Here.
Lisa Thomas?
I'm here.
Christina Tights? Roll call is completed.
Thank you very much, Leslie. So we have almost a full house. We do have some guests on the line as well. If your name was not called, would you mind introducing yourself, please, so we can capture that for the notes?
Hi, my name is Catherine Flynn. I'm the literacy specialist at the Sherman School in Sherman, Connecticut. It's a K-8 school.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you for letting me join.
Hi, I'm Regine Randall. I'm a professor over at Southern in the graduate reading program.
Wonderful. So you got my email. Perfect. Welcome. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you again for being here today. This is very exciting. We have a lot to share. As we start each meeting, we start with our culture in the virtual space. We ask that you keep yourself on mute unless you are speaking, that you keep your video on if possible. We'd love to be able to see you. Use the chat if you'd like when you ask questions. You can raise your hand. We use our emojis here and our icons. So using your emotional icons. So just to review the purpose, role, and tasks of the council, the purpose, as you know, is you are to provide consultation to the director of the Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success. I am serving as the interim, so you are providing consult to me. So thank you so much for all you're doing. The roles and tasks include the annual goals that we've been discussing, the meeting at least once every 2 months, as we said, consulting with the director and supporting the work of the center. I would like to use this time to consent to the minutes. Were there any additions, substitutions, edits, corrections that needed to be done to the minutes? Okay, so then we will take the draft off and post as final. Thank you all for that. A review and updates. So I'd like to spend some time celebrating what we have done to date, because at each meeting we have really focused on some important contents. And first, what we're going to be talking about today are the approved menu of research-based K-3 assessments that are legislated not only in the dyslexia legislation, but also in the reading bill legislation. The Connecticut review process, giving a shout out to many members of the council who assisted in or are assisting in that process. The draft Science of Reading position statement, the draft statewide literacy needs assessment, and then I have a link here because we are doing a nationwide search or a national search for a director, a permanent director. If you would be able to take this link and send it to your contacts, that would be wonderful. So moving along, here are some updates. Now, we attached to your email, thank you again, Leslie, the board documents where these assessments were approved to be added to the menu. So by July 1st of 2023, all districts must be using one of the approved assessments in their K-3 realm. So any questions about that? They are, oh, okay, Stephen, I see your hand up. They are allowed per legislation, as you saw in the graphics, to use a couple different assessments because not all assessments hit on all legislated areas. Stephen, did you have a question?
I do. So I think it may be important to perhaps give us a brief overview of how it is that you were able to come to this list. I think it'd be important for us and the public to know. But and then I may have another comment later, but I'd like for us to understand that.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. It's so much a part of my work. I often forget to kind of take that step back. So thank you for reminding me. Years ago, this legislation was passed in which, at that time, it applied to the Alliance districts, that they had to be using an approved assessment K-3 and then sharing those data with us here at the state. And in this way, it assisted all of us in establishing reading plans for students and assisting in instruction. So with the latest legislation, this changed to be all districts. So all districts must now be using an approved K-3 assessment. So how does this happen? It happens where we do an all call out to districts and say, if you have an assessment that you would like, it goes to superintendents. If you have an assessment you would like us to look at and review, then, hi, Dr. Jenkins, great to see you, thank you. If you have an assessment you want us to review, then the paperwork gets submitted. Dr. Joanne White, I must give a shout out to, as she's the one that really leads this work, working with statisticians and psychometricians, and really making sure that each of the assessments are valid, reliable, etc., and aligned to the legislation. So the latest one happened within this last year, and after these are designated, it goes to the State Board of Education that gives the approval to move forward. This year, the legislation really made changes, and I know superintendents and districts have questions. We are creating guidance to assist districts. So the guidance is going to start with paper guidance and documents to say, you know, you can consider doing this. Does that help, Stephen? Did I forget anything from?
Thank you, Melissa. I think that's really important, Dr. Hickey, I should say. And I guess the follow-up question would be the process of having the board approve the recommendation. I don't recall that that is a process that is specifically outlined in the most recent iteration of the bill. But as I understand, that was your usual process. And I just wonder if you have any reflections on that.
So correct, that is not reflected in the legislation, and it is a practice that was developed prior to even me being here, and it's something that we have continued on. We do like to keep the Board of Ed looped in. So, you know, even with the programs that we have started the work about, that I'll be talking a little bit more about here, you know, at some point we do want to be sharing with them the programs, but in the legislation, it's very clear that the programs need to be approved by, reviewed and approved by the director and you all, the council. So, yes, it's been a practice we've done for years. They ask really great questions around the assessments too, and it keeps them in the loop as well. Let me just admit this person here. Fran, did you have a question?
Just a couple of questions. I do remember being an Alliance District superintendent for many years, that this applied to the Alliance districts. It's now, I just want to reiterate, right? It's applying to all districts?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my second piece is, you know, as a user of iReady and a user of STAR, what would cause those to be dropped?
So, right.
And when I say dropped, that means they're no longer approved and can no longer be used unless the district requests it, right?
Well, with the assessments, it's a little different. They don't have that in the legislation. Districts can use the assessments. However, they must use one of the approved ones, because one of the approved have shown to align once again to the legislative intents and legislation of two separate pieces of legislation. So if they want to continue with using multiple assessments, they may do so. It just harkens back to years ago when I first came. Actually, no, I wasn't quite yet at the state, but there was a lot of discussion about, and it continues, for what purpose are we assessing kids? So just really making sure we keep in mind what assessments are we using and for what purpose, because you hate to use multiple assessments for the same purpose. Because
Yeah,
we
I
need
mean,
that
I would-
instructional time. So this is really the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, this is really the time for districts to reflect and to say, what assessment are we currently using? And which one is it time that we do let go? Because once again, we don't want to be giving too many assessments.
It's interesting. It's just that, Star and iReady used to be, and Dibbles. Well, I know that Dibbles has an 8th edition, but that's still not approved, right?
No. So just certain ones, this was just the additions to the menu. You'll see there's some new ones. The Dibble 6th edition is an older edition, but the newer one has been approved. So let's see here. We have Dibble's 8th edition, M-Class, Dibble's 8th edition, M-Class vocabulary, and M-Class RAM.
Oh, so that they continue on.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
What's very helpful in the board document is that attachment C, where it's laid out exactly aligned to the legislation and to the dyslexia task force intent document as well. It really shows you each area. Let's see, I mean, I can show it on my screen too. I have limited screens here. Sorry. Let me see if I can get that other document up.
It's okay. It might not.
That's okay?
This might not be a concern of everyone's. I don't want to take a lot of time.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the question. I think it really does help clarify how it is that this is a crosswalk for those that are going to be using them in the district.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's an important question, Fran.
So would
It
you
helps
like
me
me
to
to
be able
show
to
what I'm
critique.
talking about in your packets? I mean, I can show you on my screen. So let me do that. If you could just give me a second to do so, and I can stop sharing this. I actually need to shut my computer for a second. Okay. Thank you for your patience here with my. All right, I have this. I can make it bigger for people to see. I'll go to the page then. If you get seasick, don't watch. I'm going to go to the end. Here's attachment A, which talks about the background, talks about what it means to be a general outcome measure. Talks about the open review period that we had that I was referencing, where districts can submit assessments to review. Here were the guidelines for superintendents and what assessments must have. Of course, Dr. White. These are the technical standards to which they must align. And let me zoom down. This is what districts then must fill out in detail as to each attribute to assist us. All right, hang on, I'm going to go, this is the old. Sorry, watch your eyes. Okay, attachment C, here we are. So this is what is really going to be helpful to districts, where you can see that the expectation by the legislation is a combination of assessments to ensure that all areas are being assessed. So you can see here what which assessment assesses which items by using different ones together. So here we have it for kindergarten, first, second, and third. And then you can see here as they get older, certain things are no longer applicable because by that grade, they really should have that down pat. So this is what I feel, like I said, once again, it was very helpful when we were creating this. It helped Dr. White and I to really lay things out and say, okay, how can we do this? How can we do this? And we found this format to be most clear. And we asked others too. We said, do you understand what this means? Before publishing it. So. All right, I'm going to go back to all of you now. Any other questions about the assessments?
Thank you for that.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I'm so glad you're asking questions. This is great. Lisa, did you have a question?
I have couple of questions, but they're not necessarily pertinent to the specific assessments. It's more, one is a concern moving forward, and one is about accountability, fidelity to the use of these assessments, but this might not be the time to ask those questions.
Well, it's up to you if you want to ask the questions, if I can't answer them, or if we need to move
Okay.
them to later, we can do that. What are your questions? Go ahead.
Sure. So I've done a lot of talking with my colleagues who are literacy leaders and professionals. And so one concern that's come up several times is that they feel the issue of early literacy and early intervention goes beyond the assessments, and that it's very important to look at teacher preparation programs. I know that's not our job, but I'm just wondering, I guess, two things. One is that being looked at some point in terms of our teacher prep programs? And the other is there professional development needed around this new menu of assessments? And if so, how is that going to be provided?
Sure.
And what is the cost impact to districts?
Correct.
As a municipal leader, that's always in the back of my mind because I
Correct.
have to do a budget every year.
Right. So the first about the teacher prep programs, that is in the legislation for the council to have conversations about and to work with higher education. I can pull that up and say exactly what that is. But you're right, we do not have oversight to the Board of Regents, but we do have really great partnerships. And I do know that many institutions are very open and welcoming and ready to have these conversations. So that is something that we can explore as we move on as a council. Just want to find it here in the legislation. Or I could get back to you on that too. I don't want to waste
That's
time
fine
looking
too.
for it. But I do know that it is addressed in the legislation. And then your other question regarding professional development, districts still have the choice of which one to choose. And that is something that we have always been very clear about, is that it's really important that the assessments that they choose, they have a lot of professional learning around, and that they're really supporting their teachers and understanding not only how to administer the assessment, but then what to do next and what do you do with those data? Because that's so often where schools and districts get a little stymied. They have tons of data on students, but then what does the data mean and how do you put it into instruction? So those are some elements that we do hit on in ReadCon, which is one of our ReadCon programs. Also, with our Connecticut literacy model work, there are districts we've been working very closely with which would be Yukon, Hill for Literacy, Literacy How, and in supporting districts with the assessments that they have, what do you do with the data and moving forward with that? So there have been some things in place, and the intent of this legislation is to make that broader and to support more districts around those areas.
So as districts, if a district is needing to remove some of the assessments it has been using because there's a new menu and adopt new ones, there is of course a cost to that, which is going to be a new cost when we've already passed. Well, this doesn't go into effect for another year. So it'll be a new, it could be a new and an increased pressure. So that, of course, is a concern to me for school districts, and to me, again, as somebody responsible for making sure a local budget gets passed. And then you also, so I'm, and also as a teacher, of course, I've experienced these cyclical shifts, and I know that a lot of that is based on research and how the world and our understanding of learning changes. But I also understand the impact on my colleagues and the need for the time to do good professional development. And of course, to make sure that these assessments are having the intended impact we would want those who are administering them and interpreting the data to have that deep professional development. So that, of course, is a concern. And I would hope that whoever, wherever that support would come from, it would be directed towards school districts. And it's all school districts now, as Fran pointed out, not just alliance districts. So that's, certainly something to think about as well. And then when I asked about teacher preparation, is that what you were saying, that CSDE doesn't have oversight over, but you have good partnerships?
I was meaning that the colleges and universities are separate from the State Department of Education. We work very closely together,
Right,
and have good relationships together. But we're governed by different boards.
but in the end, it's the state that sets up the certification requirements and expectations, correct?
Yes, the certification, yes.
All right, thank you.
And once again, that's not my area. That really is, we could pull somebody in if people are curious about that. So that can be a next step for the council to look into the teacher prep area. I don't want to give inaccurate information either.
Right. Thanks.
All right. Yeah.
Melissa, I just have one more quick question.
Sure, Fran.
It's always been for alliance districts. It is now for all districts. Is this the first year that it's for all districts?
Yes. And by July 1st, 2023, they need to pick which assessment. Correct.
Okay. So I'm not sure that's good for me to know, because I'm not sure superintendents are aware that it's all districts. So I think we need to, certainly CAPS will do some work there. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we have, just so you know, we have been going to all the RESCs and doing our tour of the RESCs and explaining the legislation there. Also, a letter the document you received was attached to a letter that just went out in our superintendent memo last week, I believe it was. So I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that, and we'll spread the news as well. So thanks. Margie, you have a question, and then Steve again. Stephen?
Yeah, I was under the impression that the screener was a requirement for all districts, not just alliance districts. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the legislation.
Yes.
But,
Yes,
oh.
it is. Yes, all districts.
But it's always been that way.
It wasn't always as spelled out. No, it was for the alliance districts. Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was all for everyone.
This legislation clarified that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Stephen?
I'm sensitive to the experience of the districts, as Lisa, if I may call you Lisa, as Lisa pointed out, and I'm wondering, what the future of ReadCon may be in the context of some of the assistance that the districts may need with that professional development, with the implementation, there's also the resource question, and I wonder with the gap in time, right, for implementation, was that gap in time taken into account so that districts could align their resources around whatever needs they may have in this particular way? Was the gap in time also allowing for the center to design implementation strategies and advice for districts to be able to take this on? I want to know what we can anticipate in terms of help will be coming to districts and what they can anticipate in terms of expense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And those are very important things that I neglected to mention. You're correct. Where the legislation was being very thoughtful, the legislators were being very thoughtful about having these programs identified and the assessments identified, and then giving districts a year to then provide professional learning, pick which one they want. I actually did that backwards, right? Pick which one they want, provide professional learning and supports. So absolutely. Also, this is coming at a time where the ESSER, the ARP funds could be utilized by districts. I don't know where districts are with that and those funds, title funds. So there are ways that you could be braiding your resources for districts. But I hear what you're saying, Lisa, and that is, as Stephen so eloquently said, something that we're cognizant of as well, that, oftentimes legislation does bring about costs to districts. So yes. Anything else before we move on? And Lisa, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to say, as far as some of those sources like ESSER, I know a lot of districts have already committed those resources and used a lot of those resources and had to develop their plans for how they were going to use those dollars. And again, a lot of that has tied back into our municipal budgets, relying on that reporting from the district. So it might not, we love to talk about those big pots of money from ESSER and ARPA, but a lot of them are committed.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And we don't all have big pots, by the way, from those sources.
Right.
Some of us got very small pots.
Correct. Yes. Now, as this is a council meeting and right now we don't have an opportunity for others to speak, I am going to move on. I don't believe, trying to see if there's anyone else who has questions. Okay. All right, so let me get the PowerPoint back up here. We can move on to the next.
Excuse me, Melissa. This is Regine Randall. I have my hand up, but I'm not sure if maybe you didn't see it.
Are you? I wasn't aware you were on the council. My apologies.
Oh, okay. No, I'm here.
He's not on the council.
Okay, yeah. I don't think you're right. I don't have right. So if you could hold, since this is for the council. And then I can talk to you after if you'd like. I'd be more than willing to have a conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right, so moving along, we talked about the assessments, and we continue with the legislative mandates. The assessments have been approved. Districts have been notified. Like I said, the superintendent memo, the Board of Education meeting. Now we're moving into the programs. Once again, thank you so much to the members of the council who devoted so much time to this process. It is very much appreciated, as well as others. So not only did we have council members who were reviewing the programs, we also had many experts come forward, reading literacy experts and people in the field who offered to look at the programs as well. We continue to do so. As you see here, we had an open review period. This open review was a little different, but it was based on the assessment open review period, where we did an all call to districts, but we also did an all call to publishers. So some publishers did put in for their assessments, some districts, not assessments, programs, some districts put in for their programs and curricula, and we took, I'm sorry, I keep getting messages flashing here. That's the one downside for me for being online. I get off task by seeing meeting chat and people wanting to get in. So the open review period did happen May 4th to the 25th. The review process, as you can see, like I said, included members of the council as well as experts and practitioners here in Connecticut. And right now we're auditing and analyzing the data collected. So going through each of the program reviews to ensure that the correct numbers were used. It was a scale of 0 to 3, making sure no one accidentally put in a 4, things like that. So we're not in a place where we can share these data yet, but we are moving closer. We did get permission from Senator Miller to extend the time a little bit. So we want to do our very best here. So any questions about that core process? There were 55 programs that were put forward. I shouldn't say programs. There were 55 submissions. Many of them were the same program, but different districts may have put in the same program, and we wanted to ensure that every submission was reviewed at least twice. Dr. Coyne.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. If you can, and you know, can you talk a little bit about what that next step on looking at the scores, and then what this group's role is in the future, the next steps for this group?
Absolutely. So, and I realize, I understand that we are slightly delayed from that July 1 deadline, but we are moving forward. Once again, the legislation does say it is the director of the council in consultation with all of you. So now that I am serving in that interim role, we are moving forward. What the next steps will be, as many of you know, who were part of the process. Not only were we doing internal reviews, we're also doing external. So looking to see what other states who have been doing this before we started doing this. So Massachusetts, Colorado, looking at ed reports to see how they were evaluating or where they scored certain programs. So that is the process that we're going through right now. At the end, a list will be developed that will then come to this group for conversation and then go out to the field as the approved program list. Does that help?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay. And we're doing this as quickly as possible, just so you know, because we know, I know people in the field are very anxious and wanting to get this information, and we're moving as quickly as we can. So we just want to make sure everything is very valid and reliable. All right, anything else about, we've talked about the assessments, we've talked about the programs, anything else? Any questions, comments, Stephen?
Just one, if I may. You know, I think there, of course, there were deadlines that were missed, but I would be remiss if I didn't openly thank the commissioner just for her foresight in putting you in this position so that the work can continue. It's very difficult to find the person who is ultimately going to, fill this role, whomever that may be. But for you to be able to continue this work in the interim, I really think shows her sense of urgency and, of course, matches the sense of urgency of this council. So thank you.
Well, and once again, Stephen, you're so eloquent, and I was remiss, and you're absolutely right. A big shout out goes to our commissioner. And deep appreciation. And for her to trust me with this role, for all of you to trust me, means a lot to me. The work obviously is very important. It is work that I've been involved with for the 6.5 years I've been here. So your words mean a lot, and they really resonate with me, and I'm sure they do with the commissioner as well. So you're right, a huge shout out to our commissioner. Thank you. Dr. Brummett?
Thank you so much. Similar to the previous question about the review of programs, results will be a little bit delayed. If I'm recalling correctly, we had to implement one of these approved programs this coming school year. Is that still the case?
No, it's not. So all of the district, the 2 requirements for districts, it's by July 1st, 2023. So for the school year starting July 1st, 2023. So you will have that year, little less than a year, to do exactly what you were doing for the assessments, looking at what you have in the district, making those informed choices, and aligning it to fiscal, etc. Now, thank you, Dr. Coyne. There are opportunities for districts. One, if a district feels that they do not have the funds to start a program by that date, they can appeal to the commissioner. Also, there will at some point be a waiver process developed where the districts can apply for a waiver and put forward their own program. I feel like I'm in the classroom, excuse me 1 second. Okay. My lights go out if I stay too still. So I should have a ball, many of us in the classroom who would have the ball that we would throw. So now I got myself off track with that. So programs. All right. So there are 2 things. One is the waiver, like I said. So if your district feels like you are using an evidence-based program that includes phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, fluency, etc., there will be an opportunity for you to fill out a waiver to appeal to the commissioner. The other one, like I said, is if the district feels there's not enough funds at this time, they can get an extension, and all of that will be created and then shared with districts how to go around doing that. All districts by July 1st of 2023 do need to designate what program they're using and then tell us at the State Department of Education. Those are details that we are developing and will be shared as soon as they are completed. So July 1st, 2023 is a date to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I so appreciate your questions because obviously there are things that I neglected to mention. So thank you. Anything else? All right. So I'm going to move back to my PowerPoint here. The Science of Reading position statement. So thank you once again. You all put your eyes on that. And I do know that some council members volunteered to add a few things to that. And I'll be reaching out to you just to see how you're doing with that. So we drafted it first here at the State Department of Education in the fall of 2021, based on feedback from the field, people saying, what is the science of reading? That was echoed here during one of our council meetings. This draft statement was reviewed and revised by our Connecticut literacy experts. They added a lot of really great information to it. Then you all reviewed and revised it as well. Like I said, I will be reaching out to some of you who so kindly offered to give some statements and play around with it a little bit. Our next step after that will be gathering additional feedback from stakeholders. So that'll be happening the fall to winter. This is not something that is legislated, just so you know that. This is something that came as a result of conversations in the field. And then all of you reiterated that at one of our meetings. You said we really need to define what is this science of reading? What does this mean? And you gave great comments, revision ideas, etc., which we so appreciate. So I just wanted to update you on the process of where that is, because I know we had a little bit of a hiatus as the group was reviewing the programs. We had scheduled those meetings thinking that we could use those meetings to review, but reviewers decided they would rather do it on their own and then submit to us their reviews. So here we have the Science of Reading position statement. Our next is the statewide literacy needs assessment. This was something that we had developed the PowerPoint and we had shared with you the questions from Hanover Research about putting out to the districts so that we can get a sense for what are their needs around professional learning. So to echo what all of you have been bringing up, where are they with programs? What kind of supports do they need so that we can better provide our supports and think about next steps regarding what types of professional learning does the field need? What documents or even physical supports of coaching, et cetera, do they need to align to this legislation? So that's where we are here. There is a fall target release date sometime in the fall. We don't want to do it too close to the start of school. It's always a time that they really need to be devoting their time to the students. But that will be going out. And of course, I will keep you all updated. And then next, a full-time permanent education director of literacy research and reading success. The application, the second round, opened in July 18th. It is closing August 3rd. We would very much appreciate if you could share this posting with individuals you feel may really enjoy the work and really excel with the work. So any questions before we get deeper into our work? So Maureen, Dr. Berman, your hand is up, but I don't know if that was a hand up from previous or if you have another question.
My apologies, I will take my hand down.
Okay. And then I saw Lisa and Stephanie.
So I just wanted to ask you to put that link for the job opening into the chat or email it out to us because we can't grab it live from here in order to share it. Or at least I
Sure. And
can.
I'll be posting this as well. Let me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now. Absolutely. Thank you.
So my question was, and I'm not sure if I missed it somewhere in the shuffle, you said that this is like the second round. Were we not able to find a candidate that was suitable in the first go round of this? Because I remember this being posted a couple months ago.
Correct. Yes. I think my position was posted like 5 times. So, but yes. So we're moving forward with another round and encourage people to apply. Questions? So Lisa and Stephanie, if you don't have other questions, would you mind taking your hands down just so I don't get confused? All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing that. And so legislated next steps. As you saw, we've been doing a lot of work. We continue to move forward and we have more to do. So what I wanted of our legislated next steps. The center can oversee an intensive reading instruction program that provides tiered supports to Alliance District elementary schools that enroll students who are not reading at or above grade levels. This one is directed right at the Alliance districts. Here, not later than January 1st, 2023, shall develop a coordinated statewide reading plan for grades K-3 students containing strategies and frameworks. And that was one of the goals you all picked. On or before January 1st, 2023, the department shall provide guidance for administering the approved reading assessments. So here's another legislated mandate of a timeline. And once again, by July 1st, 2023, each local Board of Education or regional shall implement a reading curriculum model or program and the approved assessment. So we drafted goals in one of our meetings, and then we confirmed our goals to review, research, and analyze successful birth to 12 evidence-based literacy strategies. We started that with Margie, so thanks again, Margie, for presenting. We said we were going to analyze the current landscape, which is our Hanover survey, and develop a reading success strategy to be included in the alignment of reading instruction with the 2Gen initiative. What I'd like to do is delve a little deeper into this and talk about how do we develop this strategy? So I would like to use some of our time now to talk about how will we develop this strategy. And for those of you who are not familiar with the 2Gen, Stephen, I know I'm cold calling you, but would you mind giving some background on the 2Gen initiative? As I know, your commission was really leading a lot of the work around that.
I sure would. So I'll be as brief as I can. This is important work because it is part of a national effort. 2Gen began what seems like a generation and a half ago under the previous 2 administrations ago in the federal government. It was a nonpartisan effort to really put the family at the center, the family as a unit of success and progress that is both health-driven, education-driven, access-driven, and resource-driven, and ultimately to break cycles of poverty, intergenerational cycles of poverty, and to ensure multi-generational access and success. So that's really what 2Gen is. Under the previous administration, it was called a whole family approach to jobs, but the essence of it remains the same, which is understanding that the family is successful when early literacy is in place. We understand that mom's literacy level really helps determine the literacy level of the child. The research shows that. So those are elements that we understood are key to success long-term, is literacy being one of them. So as part of that multi-pronged strategy, we now have an interagency efforts in the state of Connecticut to connect the dots on resourcing, on jobs, on the whole 9 yards. Literacy is an important part of that trajectory of success for families. So the reason that we're asking, or that the legislature, I should say, asked that 2Gen be aligned with the work of early literacy was firstly because of that data point that I mentioned earlier, but also because, as we know, if children aren't reading by that important developmental benchmark, 3rd, 4th grade, thereabouts, that reading to learn is really a missed opportunity for kids, and the school to prison, school to lack of success, school to diminished expectations pipeline really does take hold. So I really see the work of this council as critically important in our overall work around multi-generational success. And when I say multi-generational success, I don't just mean, hey, mom and dad, your kids are going to do better than you did. I mean multi-generational success within the same generation. We should have high expectations for our families because they have high expectations for themselves. And that's really the essence of 2Gen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Was there something else that you wanted to say? Because I did see that your hand was up.
No, that was it. I wanted to reference the legislative initiative. There are other states in the United States that are linking literacy to 2Gen. One specifically that comes to mind is Tennessee, through the very generous efforts of the state of Tennessee, but also, of course, the wonderful and talented Dolly Parton, who is such an investor in early literacy. You've seen the linking between multi-generational success and early literacy, which is really great.
Awesome, thank you. And then when you get this PowerPoint, there it is linked. Our actual legislation is linked here. So I put that in there. So thank you so much. So what we're going to do, I don't know if you've ever done a Peel the Onion protocol. I have adjusted it just a little bit here to try to fit into a virtual space. But what I'm going to do, and then I'll show you on the next slide a little bit more detailed directions, but I'm going to talk about this strategy and what my questions are. Then what I'm going to do is turn to all of you for clarifying questions. And then you'll answer prompts such as what I heard Melissa say, one thing I assume to be true, a question raises for me, so that we can talk about how will we move forward as a council in this virtual space to attack or to complete our goal of developing a strategy. Because it's much like peeling an onion, right? We talk about one thing and then there's a whole nother layer, and then you peel another layer and there's a whole nother layer of what to do and next steps and questions. So the question here is, how will we develop this strategy to be included in the alignment of reading instruction with the 2Gen initiative? So I'm going to talk a little bit as you listen, then I'm going to be quiet, and then you all are going to talk, and each of you will have time to ask clarifying questions, to answer prompts. I'll be taking notes regarding what you're talking about, and then we'll discuss the now what and what are our next steps around this. So basically, I'll just use a minute or two. So we picked developing a birth to 12, grade 12, reading success strategy to be included in the alignment of reading instruction with the 2Gen initiative. And for me, there's a lot of pieces here, right? There's a strategy, there's the alignment to reading instruction, and then there's the 2Gen initiative. So I'm wondering about defining the strategy. What is this strategy? How are we defining this? Why are we doing it? You know, how is this resonating with all of you? We know that this is legislated, but why else? What might a result be to this? What would we be happy with? And how will we know if we're successful? I might have to just give up on my lights here. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to all of you, and I am going to, like I said, be taking notes about your thoughts and opinions about how do we develop this birth to 12 reading success strategy to be included in the alignment of reading instruction with a 2Gen initiative. So, clarifying questions. I'll just do an around. Dr. Gillis, any clarifying questions that you can add to the mix here? Oh, you unmuted, and then you muted again.
Okay, there we go. I actually had my hand raised, so you beat me to the punch, Melissa. No, my clarifying question is really more of an acknowledgement that this is such an important thing that you're doing, is bringing in 4th through 12th grade, because the legislation that we are really speaking about with the center is K-3. So my clarifying question, I guess, is really, how did you come to that, to that point? I mean, I assuming I have good ideas about why, because we have many children who pass on to those successive grades not knowing how to read very well. And that really brings us to the 2Gen as well, connecting with that legislation. And, I'm a big fan of connecting dots for people whenever we can. So just maybe could you add a little bit more about where you see 4 through 12 fitting in and how we can bring them into this work? Bring that when I say them, those grade levels, that band into this work.
Sure. So I'm going to actually stay quiet, but this is something that you all had talked about as a goal, and it ties to the legislation. So I'm going to throw it all back to you all. So Margie's questions are, how did it come to this point? Where do we see K-4 through 12 fitting in? So thank you for starting us off. Anyone else just wants to speak up, you can just unmute. Clarifying questions, things that are going around your head.
I'm wondering about the birth to preschool age population. We don't typically, other than in the special ed world, have a lot of impact on those younger birth prior to pre-K age. How is that constituency going to be involved?
Thanks for bringing that up, Maureen. Very important part of this, right? Prevention matters a great deal.
I'm wondering about the nuts and bolts of the 2Gen initiative. Which districts is that 2Gen in, and how does it operate? You know, how do we operate with the families that are involved in the 2Gen initiative?
Yeah, I'm having a similar thought. Wondering about the families that this might target and how they'll be brought into the mix so that it doesn't come off like, okay, you guys are the poor families that need extra help with reading. You know, we don't want those students and families to feel singled out. So I'm also wondering, like, how will this actually play out, and how do we get feedback from families as part of, you know, as this process starts to get built and as these strategies start to be created, how do we get feedback from the families themselves that might be impacted by this?
I guess my one clarifying question might be, you know, what does the outcome or product of this look like? Is this a strategy, a sort of conceptual framework that kind of outlines big ideas across the speech span, or you know, kind of recommended components or practices? And then you know, then I'll stop there. Sort of, you know, kind of what are we shooting for as the outcome that then is the, you know, the document or the information that we disseminate as a result of this process?
Something I've been thinking about is how do we help families whose parents struggle to read themselves, or maybe don't have English as a first language, or they're not confident in reading in English. You know, how do we work with them? And some of the agencies I know that I've supported, you know, that are doing the work, maybe could use some extra help, or just thinking about them as well.
I've been wondering which agencies in the state could we partner with, or could the center partner with, to make this strategy come into fruition?
I'm also wondering how we can bring the work that we've done with the Connecticut literacy model with family engagement that Stephen has been part of over the years, and bring that into this work as well.
And just for the purpose of note taking, Melissa, some of the agencies that come to mind is the hub agency for 2Gen at the executive branch, which is the Office of Early Childhood. They play a critical role in early literacy. There's also an interagency council on 2Gen at the executive branch, because they're realizing the connectedness between early learning, food security, housing security, all the other elements. And then at the legislature, there is the 2Gen Advisory Council, which is the policy shop for the work. again, this aligns, connects the dots on resources, connects the dots on opportunity. And of course, there's also community engaged participants as well. So how is it that we access the private and nonprofit sectors to help in this work as well?
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have some really important questions here. This is great. So I would like to do the next step, which is having you all think about and sharing with us. I'll put the questions up. Now that you've heard the questions, answering one of these prompts about, it could be what I heard Stephen say, what I heard Fran say, it could be anybody. What I heard blank say was, one thing I assume to be true is, a question this raises for me is, or a what if or a what or an I wonder statement. So based on what you heard from your fellow members, anyone can begin.
I wonder how capturing the voices of families leading strategy forward statewide. I wonder about capturing the voices of families.
Thank you.
What I think I heard a number of people say, and that I'm combining two of these, so which I assume to be true, is that this effort will require, an inventory or of different agencies that have a role in supporting literacy.
Thank you. All right, then what I'm going to do now is review the notes that I took. And like it says, reflect out loud, and then we're going to get into the meat of now what? What are our next steps? While I'm doing that, I'm just going to go back for those of you who are some more of our visual, who want to see. This is the one that we're narrowing in on. So once again, this comes from the legislation of something that we need to do as a council and that the center is required to do. We made it, since it is something the center is required to do, we made it one of our goals. And looking at this, we discussed how there are multiple pieces to this, and Stephen provided background for 2Gen, which makes me think that maybe we need to even go deeper into it instead of a couple minute or second, because I know that, there's been a lot of work around this, some deeper conversations or having speakers come to talk about the work.
I appreciate that. What it does by linking this work to multi-generational success, it rightfully spreads the joy of making sure that kids are reading by 3rd grade, right? For so long, a lot of this burden has fallen on schools and districts and the education system. We know that a lot of the burdens that kids experience in not being able to attain these critical skills are inside and outside of the school. So what this does is it helps us also teach, hey, wait a second, this is also a workforce strategy. We need your investment. This is also a community development strategy. We need your investment. This is also a multi-generational success strategy. So we need parents and families involved as well. So it really spreads the love of early literacy attainment.
I love the way that you phrase that. Thank you so much. And then we talked too about, there's been so much focus on birth to 3. And what we're saying is we really want to expand this to be through grade 12. Talking about the preschool age, Maureen's talking about the preschool age population and getting consistency to be involved there. Later in the conversation, it bubbled up about the Office of Early Childhood and some of the agencies that work with our younger students and children. Fran asked about the nuts and bolts of the 2Gen and finding some districts, so that I heard echoed. I also heard families and capturing those voices of families and making sure that the voices are included, looking to see some of the initiatives and some of the things we already do have in place and seeing if those can be utilized here around not only family engagement, but also about reading and some of the initiatives we've had there. What are we shooting for? Really, narrowing in on what do we want to see? What do we think this strategy needs to look like? Is it something that is very detailed, or is it something that's broader? So what we need to even define what the strategy is. So those are just some of the reflections I have. I love turning it over to all of you because you got into things that we may not have thought of as individuals, right? That's the power of the group. So moving on to now the next is based on the conversation that we've been having. What are some real tangible next steps that we can do in developing this strategy? So I'm going to turn to all of you to tell us what you feel are very tangible next steps for us to move forward on developing a reading strategy for birth through 12 and pulling in families and workforce, etc. Go. Who wants to speak next? Go ahead, Dr. Gillis.
So one of the easy things to do is come up with a list of all the potential partners, people who are doing the work across the state, and identifying who, which agencies are invested in this work and who within that agency would be a good potential partner, so that we can get a group together and share what we're doing. Again, it's really important to have these forums to let people know. We can't possibly keep up with everything. There's so much great work being done, but I think that would be a pretty easy first step.
Awesome, thank you.
I have 2 things. I was thinking it would be great. I don't know if we have the time, but I'd love to hear from someone running the 2Gen initiative and someone participating in it, and what they felt. That would be to Melissa's point too, about getting some family perspective. I know it would be little, but it's a start. And I do think, the more I think about it, first I thought, why are we just doing 2 generational? But the more I think about it, whatever we see that could work there could work more broadly, even if people aren't involved in the actual 2 generational initiative.
Thank you. And then I think I saw Melissa and then Lisa.
I was wondering about grades 4 through 12 and some of the work the State Department is already doing around, say, advanced course participation and giving all students opportunities. How could some of the work that's already being done, grades 4 through 12, and connecting curricula to college and career readiness, be a foundation for engaging some of the business partnerships around the strategy?
So are there certain people, Melissa, you'd recommend reaching out to? I mean, I've done a lot of work around college and career readiness and working with business and industry. Do you have any specific?
I mean, I always think about the Chamber of Commerce as an example. But I know that at least in Bridgeport, we're trying to help young people and their families learn that, school is connected to career, whether it's advanced manufacturing with some of the community colleges, making sure, and that literacy is a component that, to be able to read the documents in advanced manufacturing, you have to have a high Lexile level. But I don't think sometimes we pair those up. So with the community colleges, some of the Chamber of Commerce, just help in what we're doing in the state already around advanced course participation, I think could be helpful.
Thank you so much. Lisa?
Yes, so actually two things now, because so following up on what Melissa was saying, I think, first of all, I'm grateful that you brought up that career literacy isn't just doctors, lawyers, teachers, it's people in the trades, as you might hear the clatter outside my house right now that's going on. But I'm a very big advocate of letting our kids know and experience that post high school can include going into the trades. And here in Eastern Connecticut, we have the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Investment Board, which is certainly a place to turn to as an ally for this. And the other thing that I wanted to throw out as an idea is in engaging families and intergenerational work, we should be reaching out to our childcare providers, the whole childcare network. I serve on another statewide council on the farm, Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids.
Oh, did she freeze for all of you?
That network.
Oh, thanks, Kim. You froze, Lisa, but I think what you were saying is that you're on another board.
So I also serve on the Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids Advisory Council. And a lot of the work we do there is connecting childcare providers with, the goal is to connect kids to the land, but we are reaching out to childcare providers because, of course, there's always a literacy component to those pieces too. So I think there are good networks out there to help integrate that the 2-generational or beyond piece that we're discussing and get families.
Okay, so then one of the tangible next steps could be for us to use our networks to think about who connects, which then also really ties into what Margie was saying about make a list of potential partners or work that's been going on across the state, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Kim? And then also Mike and then Fran.
I just was wondering what, or if any testing is done before kids leave high school in the state of Connecticut. I think in my town, I saw some parents talking about they use the SAT scores or something for, and I'm not sure if it's for math and English or what not, but, and if that's statewide or if that's just determined locally, but I would like to know just, what testing is done to see, if there's a way to kind of capture maybe 10th grade, 9th grade, if there are children still struggling with reading, that we, try to get them some help before they leave the school system.
So yes, we do. We have assessments that we are mandated by the federal government to give to students. And it is part of our next generational accountability system. So there's many factors that factor into that. And what I could actually do is a mini presentation or even ask one of our performance people to do a little presentation on that next gen accountability system and what we in Connecticut have established as indicators for being successful after high school. So that could be a really great next step, and I appreciate you bringing that up, the next gen. Dr. Coyne.
Yeah, this just goes along with what Margie was saying about potential partners, and just I think this is kind of assumed, but I think one important partner would be special education, and I know that there's some specific initiatives at the State Department and special education focused on training special education teachers in intensive interventions in reading, and I think that would be also an important connection to think about as we kind of make a list of these partners in this work.
Thank you. And then Fran?
I applaud you for thinking about the workforce also, and I was thinking that Ready CT is a great source because Shannon Merriman is the executive director over there. She did a lot of work in literacy early on, and I sit on their board, and it's many business CEOs, etc., and higher ed people. So I think we could kill a lot of birds with one stone in getting them involved. Just coming to a board meeting and speaking about it, or having a couple of them come.
All right, thank you so much. So looking very quickly at what we did, and I will type these up to share with all of you. Excuse me, to put in the notes. But what's really bubbling up for me in the last few minutes we have is a couple first steps. First, a list of partners. So I'm wondering if everyone could jot down, not right now, but before our next meeting, which we still need to decide on when that will be, thinking about who are potential partners in the work, who have you worked with, etc. The next is also getting some people to come and speak to us so that we have this shared knowledge of other initiatives that have been going on, and some others who have been doing the work of reading and literacy in the state. So that by far is not everything, but those are just a couple of things that have bubbled up for me so far. Excuse me, once again, like I said, I will go through all these handwritten notes, so appreciate your time. I appreciate your thoughtfulness around this. I know that we do have a lot of work to do, and oftentimes it can seem daunting, but every time I meet with you, we're able to break things down into these very doable tasks and be able to see the light at the end as to, all right, this success strategy, what does that look like? What is it going to be? So already I think, we're doing also our other goal of research, which is, all right, we need to get some other people in here to talk to us about it. What are they doing? What could this strategy look like, etc. So thank you very much. Kim, did you have something else to say before we move along? Okay. All right. So basically we are at the end. If you have any questions, this is to contact me, please, would be lovely. And I'll make sure to get back to you as quickly as possible. We do need to determine another meeting, and I know we only have 3 minutes in which to do that. I was wondering if we could very quickly look at our schedules and see if we could pick another time. I'm thinking if we could do it maybe the middle of August, and then I can give you updates on everything. If I need to call an earlier meeting, I will definitely do so. But if we could aim for the middle, that would be great. And then it's not right when school's starting either. Anyone have a date they just want to throw out if you want to keep around a Tuesday around this time in August?
The 16th?
16th is what I heard first, so let's see.
That works.
Oh yeah, wow.
Is it possible to start a little bit earlier than 1, or is that just a good time for everyone?
It was previously, but I appreciate you bringing that forward. What time is earlier, like 12:30, 12? What do you feel is earlier?
I'm up and running at 7, but
Several of us have an SEL meeting from 10:30 to 12 that's scheduled.
Okay. So is 12:30 or is that not enough time? Fran, would you prefer the 1?
Oh, I don't know. I'll leave it up to Steve. He chairs it.
1 o'clock is
okay.
fine. I was just
Like,
just
I
asking.
think 12:30 would be fine. Sometimes we don't even take up the whole time. That'll give Fran and I time to eat lunch.
Yeah.
Okay. So 12:30, August 16th. Does anyone have a problem with that date? Wow. Oh, Dr. Brummett, you do? You can't make it? Oh, I just think you unmuted accidentally. I mean, muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I am tied up till about 1 that day. Did you say 12:30?
Well, then what if we start at 12:45?
1 o'clock is fine. You don't have to move off
Okay.
of that just for me. It's fine.
All right, so can we do 1 o'clock then? Is that good for everyone? Is it not good for anyone? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. All right, mark your calendars. We will send something out, but August 16th at 1 o'clock, 1 to 3. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our time is up. I do appreciate, once again, all of your willingness to follow the protocol. I really feel like that gives everyone an opportunity to think and respond more so than me talking. So thank you very much and look forward to seeing you in August. All right,
Vicky, did you
keep
say
enjoying your
until
summers,
3?
keep reading and relaxing, and talk to you soon.